Very good morning to everyone. As this is the second day of conference and we have learned many pedagogical learnings throughout. Today we are going to start with a simulated based learning. Hi, myself Dr. Rinkle Malani. I am the professor and director at MGM School of Physiotherapy, Aurangabad. So let's begin with today's session. The roadmap of today's session is first we will work out what are the existing or the traditional teaching experiences, followed by the level of integration of the traditional ones and how we can define the direction of simulated based learning, what is coming down the pipe, and then we will identify the goals, what the way you can shape the future and the evidences. Before going more into the SBL, that is simulated based learning, I just want to give a brief about teaching and learning and the traditional aspect. The primary aim of any of the teaching at any educational center is to bring a fundamental change in the learner. And to facilitate this, all the teachers has to adapt an appropriate teaching methods which best suit the specific objectives and help the students to reach their program outcomes or the course outcomes. In many of the traditional epoch, many teaching practitioners widely adapted many of the teaching learning processes and various models of teaching learning, but many of them are teacher-centered methods and they are imparting knowledge to learners comparative to student-centered methods. But nowadays, with many more advancement of the research, uh, researchers on teaching and learning constantly endure to examine the extent to which various or different teaching methods enhancing the growth in student learning and how remarkably they are capable, those teaching methods are capable to improve the academic performance of the students. With this advancement and the various researches, two major questions are addressed in educational psychology. Like, why do some students learn required knowledge and skills taught in school while others do not? Why do some students learn more than other students? So these are the two basically questions, like why few of the students are learning more and why some students are learning required knowledge and skills. With various research findings and theories of teaching and learning, they seems to contradict one each other, and there are unfortunately the possible answers to these questions are enormous, and the teacher or an educator thinks what to do next, how we can describe or how we can approach best to the learners so that the capacity or the academic performance or the prerequisites of the clinicals should improve. There are actually various models which are demonstrating a wide variety of experiences. Some say student characteristics are important. Few of them have emphasizes on teachers, family, and Proctor's model has defined a school social climate. The Cruikshank's model has described more of classroom and teacher based. So there were so many teachers oriented, students oriented, and the surroundings or the environment oriented models. And but the overall aim of the various models was to define a clear teaching learning process so that learners can get benefited at education or at academic institutions. Now, so from all these various models of teaching learning, That is from instructions to pictorial to demonstrations, discussions. The main aim is to get the better students' outcome. So meanwhile, this advancement as we have landed into the virtual environment and to overcome the relative teaching barriers, a simulated environment was found to be a complementary solution, and that's why the simulated based learning has come into the picture. So let's learn more about the SBL. Under this context, a simulation in medical education has been developed, and the use of techniques that invoke or replicate substantial aspects of the real world and replace or either magnify the experiences of patients. So simulated based learning is basically replacement or magnification of the experiences of patients and allowing for experimenting with them artificially in an interactive and guided manner. So simulation is a complementary teaching method in the medical profession, and nowadays a myriad of simulation tools are available like simulated patients, virtual patients, static or interactive simulation dummies, task trainers. Many of them are computerized, screen-based simulators. Nowadays, games are also available. So these resources are also classified according to their fidelity degree, and simulation has become a great asset nowadays in the medical profession. Why simulation? Nowadays, as a learning demand has shifted from traditional aspect to more of advanced, and we have to demonstrate more of student-centric methods, then simulation is the better answer. And there was a project initiated by the Institute of Medicine in series of publications from the quality of healthcare in America, in which they have mentioned or broken the silence that has surrounded medical errors and their consequence, but not by pointing fingers at caring healthcare professionals who are making the honest mistakes. So the basic aim of this is to improve the patient safety, reduce the cognitive and technical errors. Also, the governing body has challenged to improve the patient safety and improve the physician confidence and clinical skills. And because of all these reasons, assimilation has grown very well. The current approaches have few difficulties in providing like sufficient opportunities for practice. There are certain scenarios where the exposure is infrequent. Sometimes we cannot tailor each of the patient as per the student, and it gives a lot of patient variability. Standardization is also not possible in the live cases. Team-based learning, cultural competency, feedback, they are the few things where the current approaches are finding difficulty, and the growing complexities of patient care require doctors to master not only at the knowledge though at the procedural skills also, so that we can effectively communicate with patients, relatives, other healthcare providers, and we can coordinate a variety of patient care activities. So the answer could be the simulation. Through simulation, we can give a student sufficient exposure, we can give them a good number of time and sufficient opportunities to practice. We can tailor the patient scenarios, and a lot of patient variability. Team-based learning can be introduced. The psychomotor skills, they can learn communication, clinical decision making skills in a way that is safe and low risk to patients, and the feedback can be provided from the simulators, and it is under the instructor's control. So instructors feedback can also be helpful in learning, which is helping students for the education sessions, and can be scheduled all these simulator training to suit the students, which can reduce the dependence on patient availability. Therefore, we can say simulation emerges as a new medical educational strategy which allows students to repeat a given scenarios as many as times needed. They can make mistakes, they can learn from the errors, They can receive proper feedback and trace a learning curve, which is help us in assessment and evaluation. And finally, they can improve the clinical skills. So simulation based education is the pedagogical approach of providing students with the opportunity to practice learned skills in real life situation, and through this try learn and error phasing system, they can develop their clinical skills which are required in clinical practice without compromising patient safety, as they can reduce the stress produced by the direct interaction with real patients. When we implicate this simulated based learning into the curriculum at different aspects like first year, second year, third year, final year, or to the PGs, we can develop a good curriculum which is competency based curriculum, and we can give sufficient time to the students so that they can practice cognitive knowledge, psychomotor skills, they can learn communication, and through all these experiences they can minimizes the risk to the patients, and the SBL can become a fruitful tool in this medical education. The simulated education is not new nowadays in physical therapy education. Students are learning through positional drainage, keeping mannequins in such positions, passive movements, ALS, BLS, which a BLS is very commonly implemented, blood pressure measurement, pulse or respiratory rate, heart, lung sounds, various practical demonstrations of all physical therapy specialties. In back days, students have long acted as patients for peer practice and preclinical activities. In addition, students have also learned through various types of mannequins, and they have practiced their psychomotor skills. So these strategies we can use for the physical therapist when we are going through a simulated based learning. Through simulations, the following skills requirement we can achieve: technical and functional expertise. We are capable to solve any kind of patient or case scenario, capable to make a decision at rare or infrequent scenarios too, and it is helping us to develop a good communication skills. As we have seen, it is a physical therapist or physiotherapist are involved with multidisciplinary rehab protocols also. So sometimes communication with relatives, with the patient counseling also, and other team member also. So this simulation can help us to learn these things, and this can be an effective resource for teaching and assessing physical examination skills also. So through this simulation, the skills can be enhanced. As we have learned simulation, we should also aware about the fidelity. Like fidelity is basically we can say a degree to which the simulator is replicating a reality. So the highest match we can say high fidelity, the lowest match we can say low fidelity. Like for example, if we are performing any of the procedure or during CPR or resuscitation, when we are just practicing over the mannequin, and it is a human structured or human figure, it is called as low fidelity because that is not giving any response to us. But when during the procedure we can monitor the procedure evaluation or the rate through sometimes a respiratory rate or a pulse rate, we can say it's a moderate fidelity. And when we say it is high fidelity, it is actually realistic patient environment where the mannequins are closely resemble to the human anatomy and are designated as high fidelity mannequins. Here the ICU apparatus are attached to the mannequins, and we are getting the feedbacks from the mannequins during any of the procedures. So that means the fidelity is a one which is which helps us to match the real life scenarios. So this is how high fidelity to low fidelity examples are there. So the case studies and role play what we are practicing in a day-to-day clinical skills or during curriculum so are called low fidelity, and there are certain partial task trainers also having a low technology. So those having a medium fidelity, they are a computer-based simulation. They give you the basic feedback regarding like pulse, respiratory rate, or some of the lung and heart sounds. The high fidelity realistic is basically a learning method which consisting of reproduction of medical scenarios through the computerized mannequins. So they are set up in ICUs, and they are actually resembling the human anatomy. That's why they are called as high fidelity realistic patient. So the various pros towards using the SBL or the simulation, like they are actually replicating the real life scenarios, so it is helping us to reduce the errors and improving the patient's safety. You can create a good learner involvement, a non-threatening environment. They can improve the confidence, they can improve the knowledge retention also, and they can consistently reproduce the same clinical scenario for standardized assessment. The stations will be same, so that it will be easy to assess or evaluate all the students in a standardized way. The simulation cons would be cost. Yeah, it is a costlier instrument for a teaching learning process. Operation, as I have mentioned, there are a high fidelity instrument also, and there are technological things related to it. So it depends on the fidelity based model. But if it is more of technological, the operation point of view has to be seen, as it needs more of technical person. It is not readily available in all of the schools, professionals, or the colleges. It is occupying a good space, because you have to create a real life simulation space, including the wards, beds, or the ICU. And simultaneously, there are still little researches on effectiveness, though there are certain evidences that also I am going to produce. So these are the simulation pros and cons. Each and every technique, whatever we are learning or whatever the topic we are going, each technique has their own pros and cons. So simulation also has their own benefits, also their own advantages and disadvantages also. Let's begin with the research on simulation. One of the study they have conducted on first year students by introducing simulation based learning activities in a physiotherapy course curricula, and they found that simulation has gained their attention and they enjoyed more than the second year students. So the study has developed and introduced simulation activities into the physiotherapy curricula, and the students have really enjoyed the simulation. The next study was conducted by replacing 1 week of classroom teaching, the effect of replacing of 1 week content teaching with an intensive simulation based learning activity on physiotherapy student clinical placement performance. And they found that SBL activity immediately before placement significantly improved student performance on their clinical placement, and it is published in open access Springer link. One more influence of full-time immersive simulation-based clinical placement on physiotherapy student were conducted to work out on to see the confidence during the transition to clinical practice, and they have found a beneficial learning environment to enable physiotherapy students to transition when from the university-based education to working in the clinical environment. One more study was conducted on first year physiotherapy students who elect to participate in simulation based learning activities benefit from the experience, and first year physiotherapy undergraduate students enjoyed SBL activities and they benefited from them in terms of their practical assessment mark and grades. Yes, I have mentioned about the infrequent scenario. So this is one of the study where we have seen the pediatric patients, and the basic aim was like pediatric patients they are infrequent to see, and they have done a simulation based education improve student self efficacy in physiotherapy assessment and management of pediatric patients, and they found a significant positive effect on student self efficacy in the physiotherapy assessment and management of pediatric patients. So future probing through various researches, we can say it needs longitudinal studies to understand retention, efficient learning, implementation, sometimes infrastructure and resources, and self-directed or group learning. So these are the future probing of this simulated based learning. Here I would like to show you one of the video of our MGM School of Physiotherapy, where we are practicing simulations at our OPDs. Also the sports OPD is having a simulated floor where we are giving athletes simulated training to various games, and we help them to practice before their matches also. And there are various different OPDs where we are practicing. Also we have a mannequins from low fidelity to a high fidelity, where we are practicing the basic BLS and other cardiorespiratory and other procedural skills. Let's begin with this video. I hope you all must have enjoyed this video, because has given a real picture of simulation, because I have given a long lecture on it, some more of theoretical, and I have made you to imagine this kind of simulation. But this video has given you clear insight how simulations can be used in education, and nowadays it is increasingly embraced as a substitute for traditional methods during clinical education throughout the healthcare professionals. through various teaching learning models. First, the teaching best teaching practices has to be determined as what it needs to be assessed, and design a simulation which provokes the performance, or observe or record the performance, and we can analyze all these performance through various checklists and feedback, and we can say simulation is one of the complementary tool in the teaching learning process. For any of the teaching learning, as I have said, the advantages and disadvantages are there. For simulation also, whenever we develop any case scenario or from the low fidelity to high fidelity, we always have to go with the SWOT analysis. We have to see the strength of simulation, what are the weakness, what are the threats, and what are the opportunities through simulative based learning, and that we can easily implement into the teaching learning process. I think this slide don't need any comment. As I change the slide, you will come to know what I wanted to say. Yep, student achievement. So at any level of education, on through any of the teaching learning method, we want a fundamental change in the learner, that is student achievement. Wherever you find something extraordinary, you will find the fingerprints of a good, great teacher. So here I am ending my session. These are my references. You can go through this. Thank you so much for inviting me to present a simulated based learning session. You can find me at rinkle.malani at mgmsop.edu.in. If any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Please go ahead.